You're listening to The Rant.
Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
You're listening.
So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway.
You fucking crazy, man. You sound insane. Do you realize that?
To The Rant.
I speak jive.
Oh, good.
I've been saying it. I've been saying it for 10 damn years. Ain't I been saying it, Miguel? Huh? I've been saying it.
You're listening to The Rant with David King.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Rant. I am your host, David King. It is good to be here with you today. On March 17th, it is Friday. Friday means just the news, folks. If you didn't know that, you know it now. Thank you for joining me along this journey of podcasting. I appreciate it. The numbers are up, by the way, which is freaking awesome. Checked the analytics the other day, and they were through the roof. And honestly, I just want to say thank you. It was surprising. You know, you never really know what you're going to see when you pull up your analytics, but record number of downloads over the last 7 days, and that is pretty awesome. You know, for most of you who don't know, this show is relatively organic. I don't spend money on ads. I do not spend money to advertise this show in any way, shape, or form. It is simply done through word of mouth and social media. And so to watch it kind of organically grow the way it's going, is quite nice. So obviously I'm doing something right. People want to listen. People are downloading the show. And that's awesome. That makes me feel really good. And it's humbling and I appreciate it very much. You have no idea. If you haven't liked or subscribed to this podcast, you should. You can do that wherever you listen to the podcast. If you're listening to it at the Simplecast website, that's fine. But if you prefer to get your podcasts in places like Spotify or Apple iTunes, you can download it there. You can subscribe there. You can review it. And when you do that, it doesn't cost you anything. It simply just takes a few minutes of your time. Even just leaving like a 5-star review, you don't have to say anything. It helps out tremendously with the algorithms. If we get enough reviews, it will move my podcast to like a new and upcoming podcast on Apple iTunes. I think Spotify does that too, but I'm not too sure. But I know that if you rate review and it ranks well on Spotify, they'll do. It certainly will help. There's no doubt about that. I'm moving my mic around because I have to lean. I got to sit up. But yeah, no, I'm really, really excited. It just makes me want to come in here and keep doing this show to when I start seeing this amount of downloads. The Walking Dead series has been doing pretty well. And I'm really happy about that. It's averaging about the same amount of downloads. But right now, truth be told, the highest rated so far of this year, this is not including last year, but right now the highest rated podcast, so the one that's been downloaded the most and viewed and listened to the most, was actually the last one I did about the train derailment in Ohio. The Walking Dead, so part 9 had quite a few. It's actually one of the better rated shows. But right now, leading the pack is the train derailment episode. So I guess people like to hear the news. They like to kind of listen to current events. And, in the past, when I was doing more of that, those podcasts tend to do a little bit better than others. I don't expect the TV shows and movie review podcasts to do all that well. Just because it kind of caters to a very specific audience. So if you're not into, like, for instance, if you don't like The Walking Dead, you're not going to listen to the review of The Walking Dead. I'm also very aware that The Walking Dead is kind of old news. But it's not old news for me because I never got a chance to finish it. And besides that, it's content, but people will come back and listen to that and go, oh yeah, I remember watching The Walking Dead. I wonder what he had to say about this when I do reviews on, more current TV shows. All time. So if we go here, I get all this information. Not that you probably care, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. It's because it's my show and I can do that. So all time highest downloaded show for me since bringing it to Simplecast. Now, I've done over 100 podcast episodes of this show. Unfortunately, they're not all available anymore. I'm going to try to find a way to make them available. But the problem is when I first started this show is right around when COVID happened in 2020. And I didn't really properly archive the shows. So, and they were also recorded differently than they are now. My system is much more, I guess you could say, state of the art. I've got a nice soundboard. I've got ways of capturing all the audio in one seamless take. I don't have to go in and do post. Everything is live. And that's really great. It makes it very easy on me because I don't have a whole lot of time to do these podcasts. So I was, whatever can save me time. And so those older episodes were all done via like a recorder. And then I'd have to go into post and add the sound cues, the sound bites and everything. And it was really much a pain. And in that process of that, I didn't really quite organize it very well. So I have to go in and find them all. I probably might try to do that and come up with some sort of backlog that people can tap into. When I get a website, I probably will definitely do that. Right now, the website isn't a real website per se. It's just Simplecast. The people who do my publishing, they handle all that. But I don't want to mix up old episodes from like 2 years ago in with these new ones. So maybe down the pipeline. But anywho, the highest rated show since being on Simplecast was actually season 1, episode 14. That's Health, answering questions about NSNG with my special guest, Tina Buck. It's still the highest downloaded show. And then right behind that one was 12 Rules for Life, where we talk about Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos, which I highly recommend you pick up if you haven't read that book. Even if everything in your life is going super smooth and you're just doing great, this isn't necessarily a self-help book, although you could look at it that way for sure. I just highly recommend that book to anyone. You'll get something out of it, even when you think you wouldn't, or you don't even need it. And then third in there is processed seed oils are killing you, which I think is probably one of my favorite episodes because, processed oils, these seed oils, they're super dangerous and they're in everything we're eating. And I can't stress enough how important it is to avoid those things as much as you possibly can. Now, listen, if you're having a little bit of seed oil in your diet every once in a while, it's not going to be that big of a deal. It's like a little bit of chocolate in your diet. It's not going to kill you. But if you eat too much chocolate, that's going to become problematic. But the problem is, like, they put seed oils in everything we eat and we don't even realize it. And it is so toxic. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I recommend you go back and listen to it. I do need to do a follow-up update to that because I've learned quite a bit more about it. And I keep saying, I need to do an update. I need to do an update. I need to do an update. And I've never done it. And I think it's time to do a part 2 of processed seed oils are killing you. I did an update on NSNG. So it's episode 25. So let's talk about NSNG. which is in the top 10 for downloads, which is pretty great. But anywho, look, folks, I appreciate it. You have no idea how much it means to me that you're listening, that you're downloading, that you must be telling your friends about it. I would hope that you continue to do that. And I would appreciate your feedback. You can reach me at my email at David King. Isn't that what it is? Oh, I always get this backwards, guys. I'm so sorry. davidking.therant@gmail.com. If you email me there, I will get it and I can respond to you. You can also go to the Rant with David King's Facebook page, or you can go to Instagram and follow me there, or you can hit me up at Twitter with the Rant with David King is my Twitter handle. Let me see. Is that right? I changed my Twitter handle recently. I want to Rant with DK. Rant with DK, that Delta Kilo. Go on Twitter or follow me on Twitter. You can tweet right at me and I will respond. I'm very good about responding on social media. So I would appreciate your feedback. If there's something you want to hear more of, or if there's a topic that you're enjoying, such as you're enjoying this Walking Dead special that I've been doing, and you want other specials to be done, let me know. I'd be happy to do it. If you're more into the politics and the news, we can certainly do that. If you enjoyed the interview I did with Laura over at the Hudgens, we certainly have more of those in store. So if you enjoyed that, you can tell me, hey, we really enjoyed the interview, and I'm kind of looking forward to the next one. So, hit me up. Let me know. I would appreciate it. So today is Friday, folks, and that means it's just the news. So this is a new thing that I'm doing. I like talking about the news. I don't like to dwell in it too much and let it get to me, but I still like to kind of go over some things that are going on, talk about the big topics, kind of breaking news sort of things, what's going on, blah, 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 blah. And so hopefully the plan going forward is every Friday or Saturday, depending on the way the schedule works out, it'll be the end of the week. We will do just the news and basically just kind of cover the top news of the week and give my opinions on it. And you can still count on the Walking Dead specials. There hasn't been one this week. Sorry, I had no idea that. I had no freaking clue that season 10 was like 20 plus episodes long. I was assuming it was just 16 episodes like every other season. And so I finished up episode 16 and thinking, okay, we're done. I'm going to go start doing my show notes. And then it didn't stop. It just kept going. And the weird thing is, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but these seven episodes 17 through 20 have been absolutely pointless to the entire season. I don't know why a lot of there's two of the episodes which I have the biggest problem with, and I'll talk about it on that special. But there's two episodes there in later the season which they're absolutely meaningless. They don't do anything for the overall plot. They don't do anything for the narrative of the season or going forward. They're just kind of there. It would be like, I don't know, I would not even expect a comic book to release a side story kind of centered around it. It literally has nothing to do with anything. For instance, if you never saw that episode or heard or seen what had happened, you would not be any worse off for it. It wouldn't take anything away from what you know and don't know in terms of the story. It doesn't help excel the plot or move it along. So it's just weird to me. I'm like, why is this an extended? And what's frustrating is it's a 20 episode season. And if you're enjoying a show, if a show's really good, for instance, like Yellowstone or 1883 or even 1923, I think it is. These are three fantastic shows, and I plan on doing reviews of that very soon. It doesn't bother you if it's 4 extra episodes or 5 extra episodes. You're going to be excited. But when you're watching it, you're like, but this is nothing. It feels like a filler. It doesn't belong. It feels like an episode that would be in the middle of the regular season just to kind of fill up the season. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. I got way off there, and I apologize. That part 10 will probably be next week. If I had to guess, Tuesday or Thursday, depends on when I finish the season up. It just seems like the season's never going to end. I need it to end. Good God. So look for that. If you've been following along, come back and check out for that next week. So every Friday, just the news. Just the news with your host, David King. That'd be me. And it's going to be anything. It's going to be politics. It'll be local stuff. It'll be things like the train derailment. And the thing about it is I might do, if it's big enough and it's serious enough, I may come in the middle of the week and just talk about it. It's kind of like what I did with the train derailment. I felt like that was such a big story that I just had to come in and talk about it. I didn't want to wait or put it off. I felt it was really necessary to give my opinion and give information to people who may not have known, where to look or maybe you're only getting your information from one source. Something's come up here too. So onto all of this. I came across this on Twitter today. If you're not following Matt Taibbi on Twitter, I would. He's been releasing these Twitter files. It's kind of part of Elon Musk's big thing. He's going on and releasing all this information. After Elon Musk bought Twitter, he had access to basically kind of all of the communications inside of Twitter. And since finding out about a lot of this, it's really pulled back the curtain on what we kind of already knew. You know what I mean? Like if you were anyone who had opinions about COVID, and this is really COVID related, or frankly, for that matter, if you had opinions about the election, if you had opinions about Biden or Trump or anything, you probably knew to some degree that social media, and not just Twitter, but all of the social media, were censoring certain topics. They were censoring certain people and beliefs. We knew it. People were talking about being shadow banned. In my time of doing this podcast and I have too felt that I've been shadow banned. I'm nobody, I'm just a small guy. I'm peanuts, but I have noticed my algorithms have changed quite a bit over the course of a couple of years on places like Instagram and Facebook. Twitter doesn't seem to really have, I get engagement on Twitter, but it's really nothing meaningful. Twitter's just kind of what it is. It's really awful. It could be, and that's sad too, because Twitter could be really great. Like Twitter could be one of the best places to have a dialogue and conversation. But unfortunately it's just not that way. It's just a cesspool of really awful human beings, and trolls and bots and things like that. It's really not great. It is still great though, in my opinion, for getting news, and up in current event news, things like that, especially for like golf and whatnot. If you don't know, I have a Golf King podcast, that'll be starting back up in the coming weeks. The season's kind of rearing up and it's time to get it going again. So anywho, Matt Taibbi, posted Twitter files number 19, and it's the great COVID-19 lie machine, Stanford, the virality project. He'll refer to that as the VP. So he'll kind of, he'll abbreviate that. So don't think vice president if I say VP. He's talking about the virality project. I cannot talk, and that's a problem because I'm on a podcast. And the censorship, so it's the virality project and the censorship of true stories. The release of Dr. Anthony Fauci's spring 2020 emails has been used to exacerbate distrust in Dr. Fauci, increased distrust in Fauci's expert guidance. Reports of vaccinated individuals contracting COVID-19 anyway, natural immunity suggesting COVID-19 leaked from a lab, even worrisome jokes. So these are all things that this project kind of has key takeaways. And so this was a thing done by Stanford. It involved Twitter and many other social media. He's going to go into these details. The release of Dr. Anthony Fauci's spring 2020 emails via the Freedom of Information Act has been used to exacerbate distrust in Dr. Fauci and in U.S. public health institutions. Well, gee, I wonder why. His emails were a bit damning as far as I'm concerned. Discussion of Fauci's emails also spread in Chinese on Telegram. At least one group with 7.8 thousand members, which mostly discusses right-wing conspiracies, claims Fauci, the CCP, WHO, and several DS deep state (parentheses) agencies have information on how to manipulate viruses and vaccines, which will fully expose the truth about viruses and vaccines. Takeaway: although much of the focus on Fauci's emails is related to his communication with Chinese officials in the early stages of the pandemic, the information also has a major impact on the anti-vaccine networks. These networks are keen to foment increased distrust in Fauci's expert guidance and in American public health officials and institutions. This is according to the study. Reports of vaccinated individuals contracting COVID-19 anyway, natural immunity, suggesting COVID-19 leaked from a lab, and even worrisome jokes. All were characterized as potential violations or disinformation events by the Virality Project, a sweeping cross-platform effort to monitor billions of social media posts by Stanford University, federal agencies, and a slew of often state-funded NGOs. Just before, at Schellenberger MD, and I testified in the House last week, this is Matt Taibbi saying he testified in the House last week, Virality Project emails were found in the hashtag Twitter files describing stories of true vaccine side effects as actionable content. It shows here true content which might promote vaccine hesitancy. So this is a little clip he posts associated with the tweet. It says here from the study, true content which might promote vaccine hesitancy, viral posts of individuals expressing vaccine hesitancy or stories of true vaccine side effects. This content is not clearly mis or disinformation, but it may be malinformation, exaggerated or misleading. Also included in this bucket are often true posts which could fuel hesitancy, such as individual countries banning certain vaccines. He goes on, we've since learned that the Virality Project in 2021 worked with government to launch a pan-industry monitoring plan for COVID-related content. At least 6 major internet platforms were onboarded to the same JIRA ticketing system, daily sending millions of items for review. Though the Virality Project reviewed content on a mass scale for Twitter, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Medium, TikTok, and Pinterest, it knowingly targeted true material and legitimate political opinion, while often being factually wrong itself. This story is important for 2 reasons. One, as Orwellian proof of concept, the Virality Project was a smash success. Government, academia, and an oligopoly of would-be corporate competitors organized quickly behind a secret, unified effort to control political messaging. 2, it accelerated the evolution of digital censorship, moving it from judging truth and untruth to a new, scarier model openly focused on political narrative at the expense of fact. The beginning. On February 5th, 2021, just after Joe Biden took office, Stanford wrote to Twitter to discuss the Virality Project. By the 17th, Twitter agreed to join and got its first weekly report on anti-vax disinformation, which contained numerous true stories. In February of 2021, Stanford welcomed Twitter veterans like Yul Roth and Brian Clark, instructing them on how to join the group JIRA system. You can watch the friendly welcome video here. He attached a link to the Zoom conferencing video. I have just retweeted that right now. And you can go to my Twitter page and you can click on that link and watch the video for yourself. On March 2nd, 2021, we are beginning to ramp up our notification process to platforms. In addition to the top 7 platforms, VP, that's the Virality Project again, soon gain visibility to alternative platforms such as Gab, Parler, Telegram, and Getter, near total surveillance of the social media landscape. Though July of 2020, Twitter's internal guidance on COVID-19 required a story be demonstrably false or contain an assertion of fact to be actioned, but the Virality Project, in partnership with the CDC, pushed different standards. The VP told Twitter that true stories that could fuel hesitancy, including things like celebrity death after a vaccine, or the closure of a central New York school due to reports of post-vaccine illness, should be considered standard vaccine misinformation on your platform. I mean, that's ridiculous. But we knew that was the kind of thing happening. You know, we some of us experienced it. In one email to Twitter, VP addressed what is called the vaccine passport narrative, saying concerns over such programs have driven a larger anti-vaccination narrative about the loss of rights and freedoms. This was framed as misinformation event. VP routinely framed real testimonials about side effects as misinformation. From true stories of blood clots from AstraZeneca vaccines to a New York Times story about vaccine recipients who contracted the blood disorder thrombocytopenia. I might have actually nailed that. Wow. Anywho, thrombocytopenia. Doesn't sound good. March of 2021, Twitter personnel were aping VP language, describing campaigns against vaccine passports, fear of mandatory immunizations, and misuse of official reporting tools as potential violations. This echoed a report to Twitter by the Global Engagement Center Russia-linked accounts. While this account posts legitimate and accurate COVID-19 updates, it posts content that attacked Italian politicians, the EU, and the United States. That same GEC report found in the hashtag Twitter files identified former Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte and former Italian Democratic Party Secretary Nicola Zingaretti, who's been compared to Bernie Sanders, as highly connective accounts in a Russian-linked network. The Virality Project helped pioneer the gauging of disinformation by audience response. If the post-vaccine death of a black woman named Drain Keys in Virginia went unnoticed, inspired mostly anti-vaccine comments on local media, it became a disinformation event. I'll say that again because I may have confused you. I'll say this one more time. The Virality Project helped pioneer the gauging of disinformation by audience response. If the post-vaccine death of a black woman named Drain Keys in Virginia went unnoticed, inspired mostly anti-vaccine comments on local media, it became a disinformation event. The VP warned against people just asking questions, implying it was a tactic commonly used by spreaders of misinformation. It also described a worldwide rally for freedom planned over Telegram as a disinformation event. Almost always reportable, it encouraged platforms to target people, not posts, using Minority Report style pre-crime logic, describing repeat offenders like Robert Kennedy Jr. It spoke of a large volume of content that is almost always reportable. VP was repeatedly extravagantly wrong in one email to Twitter on misinformation. It spoke of wanting to hone in on an increasingly popular narrative about natural immunity. The VP in April of 2021 mistakenly described breakthrough infections as extremely rare events that should not be inferred to mean vaccines are ineffective. Later, when the CDC changed its methodology for counting COVID-19 cases among vaccinated people, only counting those resulting in hospitalization or death, VP complained that anti-vaccine accounts RFK Jr. and What's-Her-Face retweeted the story to suggest hypocrisy. A few months later, breakthrough cases are now happening. In a chilling irony, the VP ran searches for the term surveillance state as an unaccountable state-partnered bureaucracy secretly searching it out. The idea that vaccines are part of a surveillance state won its own thought crime bucket, parentheses conspiracy. So, to sum it all up, Mindy Robinson tweeted after this, "Our government used taxpayer money to outsource the mass surveillance of citizens to censor vaccine side effects, deaths, natural immunity, and lack of efficacy, knowing it was all true just so they can continue profiting off clot shots and strip away more rights." The Hodge twins made a funny tweet. So pretty much some woke ex-CIA people read George Orwell and thought, wow, that's a great idea. Let's do that in the U.S. Yeah, absolutely. All of this is doing is further exposing what we've already know. But we were all kind of laughed at for saying it, called conspiracy theorists or paranoid, among other things like anti-vaxxer, or you just didn't care about people. Remember that? Oh, you don't care about people. You must not care about the elderly. You don't love your grandfather because you won't get vaccinated. You won't wear a mask. It's a scary thing because it used to be a world where the people in the big tech, like the Zucks and what's the name of that doofus that created Twitter? Anyway, Jack Dorsey. The Dorseys and the Zucks of the world, they were the ones that had our back. They were the ones that we could go into these programs and we could speak our mind. We could ask questions without feeling like we were going to be banned or, kicked off or thrown into Facebook jail or Twitter jail. And you may think to yourself, hey, Dave, it's just Twitter. It's just Facebook. Who really cares at the end of the day? What's the big deal? Why does it even really matter? Because it is a big deal. This is the equivalent of a journalist being basically censored or told to shut up in 1985 when all you had was the newspaper, right? The daily news, the news on television, and the newspaper. That was where you've got your information from. There wasn't the World Wide Web. There wasn't social media. And so that's kind of like what it is. You're censoring. And this is the equivalent of someone being in a town square with a megaphone, simply speaking their mind, which they're free to do, and essentially being, arrested and silenced. It always starts somewhere small. You come back with, well, it's just YouTube, it's just Twitter, it's just Facebook, who cares? It's really not that important. But that's kind of where it all starts. It always starts there in something small. Like this small group of people are being shadow banned on Twitter. Oh, well, who cares? And if you're a Democrat and you're like, I definitely don't care because it's conservative Republicans, who gives a damn? But eventually it festers. It's like a cancer. It just spreads and gets bigger. Before you know it, you're being silenced in your day-to-day life. And we're seeing that now we turn on the news and you'll see somebody who's had to walk back something they said, or somebody got fired for a comment they made, not even at work. It was outside of work. They made comments on a podcast. They were on a podcast and they said something and the employer found out and now they're fired. Or the mob came for them with their pitchforks and had them canceled. It's just not a good look. The thing about it is everybody should be allowed to speak their mind, especially on social media. Like, that's the place to go do it. And you have the ability as a human being with a brain, the prefrontal cortex, and the ability to think for yourself. You have the ability to go on there and go, I'm not going to listen to this guy. That guy's a cuckoo. He's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I don't agree with this person or that person. I'm just going to ignore them and go about your day. And you can even go and fact check them. You could say, he just said, David King on The Rant, his podcast said masks don't work. He had the audacity to tell his viewers that they shouldn't wear masks. And I'm going to go on the interweb and I'm going to prove him wrong. And then I don't hear from you because you were like, oh crap, he was right. Masks actually don't work. In fact, we have video of Dr. Fauci saying himself a year prior to 2020 that masks won't protect you from transmitting a virus. Oh, yeah, I know. That's kind of awkward. But that's an example. You can ignore me if you don't like me. You don't have to ban me. You don't have to ban these people. We need discourse. Discourse is important. We need to hear from the liberals and the conservatives. I think liberals and conservatives should be living in harmony because both groups of people bring something to the table. The thing about it is conservatives are like myself, for instance, because I consider myself a conservative. There's a reason why we feel the way we do. And But at the same time, we have to understand that there's a reason why liberals feel the way they do. And we have to understand the importance of a liberal. And I do, because oftentimes it's the liberal that has the thoughts or the ideas that could make the necessary improvements to a institution. They're the ones that generally have the ability to think outside the box and come up with solutions or to improve an institution. Likewise, they can also have the opposite effect, where they have the idea of that could damage an institution. It's important for people to respect and honor longstanding institutions and understand them before they try to change them. And I think that's the problem with a lot of liberals. And I'm not talking about leftists. We know who the left is. Like, leftist people are extreme. They're extreme on their side. They're not looking to understand conservatives or the institutions in place. They're looking to just come in with a wrecking ball. But it's our job as conservatives to work with liberals, and liberals to work with us and understand each other and where we're coming from. Understand why I believe in long-standing institutions and why I think these systems work. And then if you're saying, hey, Dave, I think we could do it better, and here's why. Well, then let's have that conversation. But it takes discourse to have that conversation, and we're not allowed to have it. Nobody wants to have it. Nobody wants to sit at a table and actually discuss like the real problems, if there even are a problem. There may not even be a problem, but they don't want to sit at a table and have a discussion about what's going on. You can't have a meaningful discussion about Ukraine. You can't have a meaningful discussion about the banking system, I feel like, anymore. Politics, anything, without people just kind of getting very tribal and sitting in their one side. It's like this on both sides. So we need to pay attention to the Twitter files. I know a lot of people are like, it's old news, but it's not old news. They are uncovering actively what we all already knew was true, and they're showing it. And it's up to us, the American people, to say, yeah, that right there can't ever happen again. Because, and you can make the argument, oh, well, Dave, you're a conservative, and Twitter's a business, and, it's a free economy. They can do what they want, right? It's their business, their rules. That's what you guys always say. They're allowed to do what they want. Yes and no, because here's the thing. Social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter are not publications, right? They're not a newspaper. So there's no editor there unless they describe themselves as a publication. Then they fall into a different set of categories, different set of rules. If you are going to edit and you're going to dictate what can and cannot be said on this platform, then you fall into those guidelines, and thus you must kind of announce yourself as that. But if you're saying that, hey, this is a social media network where you can go on and speak and do what say what you want to say, blah blah blah. We don't have editors. We don't have people that pick and choose what can and can't be published. But then you're actively kind of doing that, and there's no real guideline to it. There's no real. It's not black and white, the rules when it comes to, what you can and can't say on social media platforms. So it is a little bit different. I agree, though, if Twitter wants to do that, like if Twitter wants to kind of mandate what can and can't be said on their platform, they're certainly welcome to do it. But at the same time, they need to be very open about it. They can't pretend like they're not doing it, which is kind of what they did here. They did it all behind the scenes, especially with like the politics of censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story, working with the FBI and hiding that information from the people because they knew it would affect the election outcome. They did a poll that I think 65 or 70% of the people had known about the Hunter laptop at the time of election would have not have voted for Joe Biden. I mean, and the thing about it is it's so sad because we live in the 21st century. We have the internet, we have social media. We are in the information age. and yet nobody's getting information. They're being fed whatever these people want you to be fed, whatever Fox or CNN or MSNBC or Twitter or Facebook with their algorithms. They're feeding you what they want you to know. And somehow people had no idea the truth about the Hunter Biden laptop, even though it was being plastered in my mind. I thought everybody knew about it, but people had no idea. It's insanity. So we got to stop this nonsense, and we need to pay attention. Pay attention to the Twitter files. Go follow him. I just retweeted it on my Twitter now. So if you go to the Rant with DK on Twitter, find me, follow me. You can see all that stuff, and you can see that entire thread with all the photos. He's got lots of really great photos that show all the highlighted emails and notes that he was referring to. It's got the video. It's got the Zoom call there. So go and listen to that. I think it'll behoove you to do so. On to the other news, an update here from East Palestine, Ohio. Joe Biden still has not showed up there. He has not set foot in East Palestine, Ohio. I don't think he ever will. It just kind of goes to show you his priorities. Pete Buttigieg finally showed up, but he, as always, he just kind of passed the buck. But here's a great article that I think is really good. This is from Just the News. Ohio is suing Norfolk Southern over East Palestine train derailment. The article goes on to say the state of Ohio this week announced a lawsuit against Norfolk Southern in connection with the February derailment of one of its trains near the town of East Palestine. Attorney General Dave Yost filed the suit on Tuesday, contending that the railroad violated state and federal laws, among them the Ohio Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, CNN reported. The February 3rd derailment saw toxic materials leak from the rail cars and forced an evacuation of the town. Authorities were later forced to implement a controlled release of the toxic materials to prevent an explosion. The Biden administration drew scrutiny for its seemingly sluggish response, which was justified. With Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg becoming a major target of such criticisms, former President Donald Trump visited the town several weeks later and encouraged President Joe Biden to do likewise, though he has not followed suit. Yost asserted that the entire episode was preventable, telling reporters on Tuesday that he was concerned that Norfolk Southern may be putting profits for their own company above the health and safety of the cities and communities they operate in. Ohio Senators Sherrod Brown and J.D. Vance have led a bipartisan group of lawmakers in pushing a rail safety reform bill that would tighten regulations on crew numbers and rail car wheel bearings in response to the derailment, though the measure has yet to gain much traction with Senate Republicans. First of all, I think this is great. I hope they win. I hope they freaking milk Norfolk Southern for all they're worth. We have a serious problem in this country. One, with our infrastructure. There's no doubt about it. We need massive infrastructure improvements. I saw so many videos after this train derailment showing how bad our rail system is in this country. It just showed, like, there was a couple rails in Ohio and Detroit, and that you can like see the rails like flexing and coming off the ground. You can see where the train is kind of bouncing up and down because the rails are no longer, flat and straight. They're just kind of bumpy and wavy. A lot of people are blaming Trump because of this brake bill that they posted that he kind of vetoed or reversed rather. But the problem is that that exact bill would not have prevented this accident from happening. Better brakes would not have stopped this accident. The axle of this train literally came off of the train. There's no brakes in the world that's going to stop that from, that train from crashing and derailing when the axle comes off. We need to look into, there needs to be an investigation, in my opinion, and that needs to be done probably by the federal government, but there needs to be an investigation into the major rail networks. They need to inspect the rail cars. They need to see what the maintenance records look like. And they need to make adjustments as necessary. I understand that costs money, but Norfolk Southern's $1 billion company. I can't imagine how much money they're making. And so there needs to be a conscientious effort put into place to fix up and improve these rail cars along with the infrastructure of the railway. Like, I understand the railway system itself needs to be improved, but we also need to make sure that these trains are being maintained properly, because from what I understand and from what I've learned, they don't seem to, there's a lot of derailments every year, like 1,500 a year. And that to me just seems unacceptable. And so we need to find a way to prevent that. If we can make flight, safe, if flying can be safer than driving a car, then there's got to be a way that we can make, our train system almost, derailments rather, like it's 0%, as close to 0% as possible. I understand there's things that are unavoidable and not, you can't do anything about. But I'm excited. I'm happy to see this. I think it's great that that they're suing them, that they're taking them to court. They should. I believe that the response from the federal government on this issue was just pathetic. If I was president of the United States, as soon as I saw this on the news, the first thing I would have done was I would have got people in action. I would have got the Secretary of Transportation on the phone. We would have had planned schedules to I would have said, we need to go down there. We need to make sure everybody has everything they need. We need to make sure they have all the resources they need. If they need money, let's get them money. If they need water, let's get them water. Whatever they need, let's get this done. And not for political reasons, other than that's just the right thing to do. It was a national disaster. There's no telling what is going to come from this. There's no telling how many people are going to get cancer, get sick. There are a lot of animals have died. The water has been basically poisoned. And for there to be kind of crickets from the federal government and even the national media up until it became a point where they couldn't ignore it. And again, thank goodness for social media. Thank goodness for small-time journalism, because nobody was talking about this. It took 2 weeks for the big news networks to really pick it up. And to me, that's just unacceptable. It felt like they were trying to hide it. You know what I mean? Like they didn't want this to get out. But in my opinion, like this could have been very easily avoided in terms of bad publicity. President Biden could have got right out in front of this when it happened. There was no reason to hide it. There's no reason to really blame him anyway. But if he had got right in front of it and handled it properly, it would have been a win for him. But unfortunately, he just dropped the ball. They're too busy giving billions of dollars to Ukraine so they can fight some war against Russia, and they're too busy giving millions of dollars to Venezuela for some, I can't remember what it was, like some I don't know, human rights program or something in Venezuela, but it was like $178 million to go to Venezuela. A country, by the way, that hates us. And so, meanwhile, beg, plead, barter, steal, do whatever you can to get what you need in East Palestine, Ohio. I mean, come on. If you don't think it's absolutely insane. And it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know how anybody can look at that and go, oh yeah, that's great. I think what Biden's doing is great. It's like Biden and Congress are really letting us down right now. Washington, D.C. is really letting us down. And they continue to let us down. Inflation's at an all-time high. The banks are now having issues. We're going to get into that here real soon. SVB bank closed down, another bank is shut down. And so they're trying to get ahead of this. We're sending billions of dollars to other countries to help them. Meanwhile, we're doing nothing to help ourselves. We're only hurting ourselves. And we've only hurt ourselves by being involved in the way that we have been with Ukraine. And I'll say it right now, I don't give a damn. I don't care. It's Ukraine's problem. Figure it out. Why is this such a big deal to certain Republicans and all Democrats? Why is the Ukraine war so important that we dish out billions of dollars to the Ukraine government with no transparency of where that money's going? We're dishing out billions of dollars of military equipment, which has now put us in a sort of proxy war with Russia. What is over there that is so important that we have to do this? What is over there that is so important that we risk going to war with Russia? Which, by the way, Russia has now made alliances with China. So all of these sanctions and these kind of punishments that we've put on Putin, that the EU and the United States have put on Putin, they're worthless. Because now he goes, oh, it's fine. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And now I'm aligning with China, and China's going to buy my oil. They're going to buy my goods. China will benefit from it. And so will Russia. And now you have this China-Russia alliance, which is extremely dangerous because you have now two very powerful countries. One, China is one of the most formidable foes in the world. They're the only one who could really stand toe-to-toe with the United States in terms of military power. And now they're aligning with Russia. So I'm failing to see the silver lining to all of this. I would love to hear, oh, well, we're doing this now so our sons, our boys don't have to go over there and fight a war against Russia. We're making the investment now so that America doesn't have to put boots on the ground later on. In what world does America ever have to put boots on the ground? Well, what if Russia takes over Ukraine, David? Okay. Countries get conquered and taken all the time. Who cares? It's not our freaking problem. Figure it out, Ukraine. And by the way, Ukraine is not a democracy by any stretch of the imagination. And frankly, they're one of the most corrupt organizations. You have Bill Gates. There's a viral video of Bill Gates talking about how corrupt Ukraine is like a year or so ago. Everybody knows that Ukraine is one of the most corrupt governments in that region. And we're giving them billions of dollars unchecked. We have no idea where that money's going. This is supposed to be like this dire, it's dire straits. Ukraine's we have to help them. It's to save democracy. And, Vladimir needs our help. Vladimir has enough time to fight a war against Russia and go on Letterman's show on Netflix, he's the only guy in the history of wars that had enough time to fight a war that is supposedly like, Ukraine's world's going to come to a screeching halt, but he has enough time to do, GQ magazine spreads, Letterman show on Netflix, and among a lot of other things. He has all this time to do all this PR. I don't think Churchill had that much time when he was fighting the Nazis. So to me, this seems really strange. I'd love to know what assets the United States has in Ukraine. I'd love to know what's going on in Ukraine that has these politicians so up in arms and willing to basically sell out the security of this nation and put us into some sort of war. I mean, make no mistake, we're in a proxy war now. But they are willing, whatever it takes. That's what Lindsey Graham says. Whatever it takes. Mitch McConnell will go on to whatever it takes for however long we got to do it and whatever we got to spend, even though inflation's through the roof, infrastructure's crap. We got train derailments and leaking toxic chemicals into the air. We give no money to them, but we're going to give all the money we can give to Ukraine. I wouldn't even be mad if we gave money to Ukraine and we gave money to the problems here in our country and fix them. I believe we can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. I'm not delusional, but we're not doing that. It's time to have the honest conversation. What is over there that you guys are trying to protect? Because it ain't Ukraine. It has, Vladimir Zelensky is simply a beneficiary of some asset that the United States has quite a bit invested in that they don't want Putin getting his hands on. So that's all I'm just saying. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I don't care. You know why? Half of the damn conspiracies of the last 5 years have come true. So laugh all you want. I don't care. Oh, there's an article here. I'm not going to get into it, but investigators released details on bank record trail leading from China to Biden family. Things we already knew. China, they're starting to find now actual hard evidence of bank records showing that the Biden family and Joe Biden have received money. The report says here the committee is concerned about the national security implications of a president's or vice president's immediate family members receiving millions of dollars from foreign nationals or companies without any oversight. Current financial disclosure laws and regulations do not require non-dependent family members to provide any information to the public, the report said. Since Comer became chairman of the House Oversight Committee, he has made investigating President Joe Biden's overseas business dealings a top priority, telling Just the News on Wednesday that he now has some evidence Joe Biden benefited from some of the foreign monies routed to his family. One thing that we have learned is that there's a lot of different bank accounts that they were funneling money from China to the Bidens, Comer told Just the News. That in and of itself shows some type of suspicious activity because most people that have a credible business or an investment firm have one account or two accounts, but there are over 8 dozen accounts. Of course there are. They're basically laundering money. How much of that $40 billion to Ukraine isn't being funneled back to these politicians? And in some form of kickback. So everything, again, the conspiracies are coming true. The Hunter Biden laptop is finally coming to light because now the people in power are starting to find hard evidence that the Biden family is pretty freaking dirty, pretty freaking corrupt. And of course they are. They're multi-millionaires. Joe Biden's never worked a day in his life. He's never had a real job. He's never started a real company. He's been in politics for over 40 years. This guy's lived in D.C. How has he become a millionaire? Well, that's how. It's how they all do it. They're all dirty. It's a good old boy club. And they don't want you to be a part of it. They want you to sit down and shut up. Shut up, plebe. Just go work. Pay your taxes. Don't you worry about what we're doing over here. If most of you haven't figured out already, you probably have heard about this. It probably concerned you a little bit. You may even called your bank to find out if you needed to be worried. They would never tell you the truth. They'd lie to you because they don't want to run on their bank. The last thing the banks want is all their people coming in to take out their money. If you don't know how the banking system works, the moment you put money into your bank account, that money's gone. That money's not even really there. Okay? The banks take that money and they put it into loans. They do investments. They do all kinds of stuff with it. So you need to understand. Now, they can do this because they're federally backed by the FDIC. Everything's protected up to $250,000. So, which is the majority of what accounts tend to be in most banks. It's very rare that more than half or so of accounts in a bank exceed that $250,000 mark. Now, SVB happens to be a different story. That happened to be a bank where a lot of big time tech guys had their money, big players in the game, a lot of $1 million accounts. So this is kind of the big deal. Lots of millionaires right now just lost a ton of money. There's rumors now that I suppose that the federal government's going to bail out people over the $250,000 mark. Again, this is problematic. We're printing more money that we don't have. Inflation's going to get worse now because now they're talking about bailing out these people who are above the $250,000 mark. And you can make the argument that they need to because this is not their fault. But it is their fault. And it's the fault of the owners of SVB Bank as well because they made piss poor investments. Okay? What happened at SVB Bank? Just to give you a summarization, SVB Bank, and most banks do this, they take their money and they invest it in something. Oftentimes it's bonds, and that's what SVB had all their money tied up into the bond market. And when they bought into these bonds, the interest rate was about 0 or about 1%. And the way bonds work is they're valued at that percentage of interest, right? So if the interest goes up, then those bonds are not worth as much or they're worth nothing. And basically what happened was, as things always do, interest rates go up. Interest rates went up. Those bonds became worthless. And because SVB had all their money tied up into that, they lost everything. And so now they went belly up. This is not like a 2008 2.0. You're not going to see like a housing market crash. This isn't the same thing. I'm not even sure that this is actually even like similar to the Great Depression. What you're seeing is banks that made really bad financial decisions are now paying for it. I don't think it's going to cause some sort of economic collapse. There's a lot of people that are kind of talking about, oh, this is going to be a domino effect and all these banks are going to fail. And maybe they will. I don't believe it's a time to panic. I don't think it's time to worry. I do think it's a time for opportunity. The interest rates got dropped right now on mortgages. So I was listening to a Dave Ramsey clip today, and he said, if you're looking to buy a house, now's the time to do it. The mortgage rates have gone, the interest rates have dropped in response to all of this. And so go get yourself a mortgage right now. Lock it in before the rates go back up. He said it's going to be a 2 to 3 week window. It's an anomaly. Doesn't happen very often, but because of the situation with the bank, now it has. So now you can go get yourself a decent rate on a mortgage. So something to think about. So Silicon Valley Bank made a lot of really bad decisions. You may have heard about it. They became kind of a very woke organization where they were investing heavily in basically, and I don't think there's nothing wrong with investing in people who are Black, Hispanic, Latino, whatever. That's perfectly fine as long as they have a good business plan, they have a good idea. But a lot of their investments, their loans were going into like eco-friendly tech, climate change agenda stuff, which we all know most of that stuff has no return. There's no return on these investments. And so they're losing their money. This article here says failed Silicon Valley Bank gave millions of dollars to BLM and related causes, a new database shows. SVB forked over a whopping $70,650,000 to Black Lives Matter, while recently collapsed Signature Bank gave $850,000, according to records gathered by conservative think tank the Claremont Institute. So SVB and Signature Bank donated a combined sum of $71.5 million to the Black Lives Matter movement, according to a new database released by the Claremont Institute. SVB forked over 70. The other was 850,000. Claremont's database cited several social impact reports that recorded the transactions and highlighted SVB's pledge from early last year to give $5 billion to companies aiming to assist with the transition to a sustainable low carbon net zero emissions economy. So they were pledging to give $5 billion to companies aiming to assist with the transition of sustainable low carbon net zero emissions. Not companies that are going to return on your investment, not companies that are going to go out and do something good with your money. Nope, just, hey, if you're in a transitioning to low carbon net zero, we care about global warming, man. Yeah, we're going to invest in it. Even if that means we're going to lose our shirts. We're going to give you $5 billion. We don't care if we get that money back. SVB is a perfect example of somebody. It's like the rich kid. SVB is like the rich trust fund baby who's got all this damn money and no damn sense. And they're just like, yeah, I'll give $5 billion to climate change people. Who cares? I've got all this money, man. I'm going to keep getting all this money. Life is good. And then one day the money's gone. And then it's like, oh, I don't know what to do. The article goes on. They were criticized following their collapse for taking their eye off the ball by prioritizing eco-conscious environmental, social, and governance, ESG investing over sound investment principles, while also focusing on diversity and social justice and hiring over strict merit. In other words, they were hiring you based off of who you said you were, but not what you actually knew how to do, which is a huge problem. And it's a problem that's only going to continue to get worse in this country as we hire people on their looks or who they say they are, blah, 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 but not based off of their actual skill. One of SVB's LinkedIn posts in 2022 celebrated the diversity hire of Jay Ursapa as the head of financial risk and model risk management, highlighting how she helped establish and is the lead for the LGBTQ plus network at Silicon Valley Bank, where she works closely with Stonewall to create and promote a culture where all can bring their authentic selves to work. The same year, Ursapa hosted an exclusive fireside chat with Suki Sandhu, the author of How to Get Your Act Together, a judgment-free guide to diversity and inclusion for straight white men. Boy, oh boy, I would have rather dragged my balls through a mile of glass than sit through that fireside chat. Let me tell you, holy hell. The topics discussed included how to get started with LGBTQ plus inclusion and global best practice in LGBTQ plus inclusion, what great looks look like. Other big name corporations listed in the BLM donor database included Citigroup and Facebook, which each gave over $1 billion, Amazon almost $170 million, Apple $100 million, and American Express $50 million, among dozens of others. You know, this is the thing. Instead of being a bank and worrying about where your money is going and how it's going to return an investment on your investment and make you money, and making sure that you're taking care of the people that keep their money in your bank, because you have this kind of fiduciary responsibility to make sure that whoever puts their hard-earned cash into your bank can withdraw it later on, instead of worrying about those things. It's like McDonald's not worrying about making the hamburgers, but they're worried about inclusion. They're worried about, climate change and things like these social justice warrior movements. And what did it do? It led to their collapse. The whole terminology of get woke, go broke is becoming more and more of a reality every day. These woke movements lead to disastrous results. It's not to say that you can't care about people. It's not to say that you can't even care about the environment, but understand who you are and what it is you're supposed to do. If your job is to be a mechanic and change oil and rotate tires, change oil and rotate tires. Don't dedicate 50 to 60 to 85% of your shop to inclusivity. Don't hire a guy because he's gay and black, but doesn't know the difference between a tire and a tie rod. I want the guy that knows how to fix a car working there. I don't care about anything else other than that. That's why I'm bringing my car. But when you get away from that, your company is going to fail. And that is exactly what we are seeing. These companies are falling apart. They're literally self-destructing. And the problem is they're getting away with it. Nobody's holding these people accountable. The leaders, the owners, the presidents, CEOs of this bank and the other bank should be dragged out to the street, indicted and thrown in prison for a long time. They should not be allowed to get away with this sort of behavior. It's mismanagement of funds, and it's irresponsible. Banks have way too much power in the world. Banks have too much power to be so willy-nilly with how they spend their money. There needs to be more oversight into what's going on. But the problem is the people who would do the oversight in this, which would more than likely be the federal government, they're so damn woke that they would overlook this. In fact, these people would get praised, awarded, a slap on the back, and said, "Good job, old chap. Even though you failed and lost billions and billions of dollars of people's hard-earned money, you had it right in your head because you were being inclusive to the LGBTQ people. And you donated a lot of money to the Black Lives Matter movement, which was a completely useless movement. You helped buy the leader of the Black Lives Matter a gigantic mansion. Good job. Fantastic." It's infuriating that this sort of crap is happening. It's like 2008, when these banks made these piss poor, and they knew what they were doing with these subprime mortgages, that they were they were wrapping these subprime mortgages as AAA when they were not even close. They knew it, and they thought they could get away with it. Nobody went to jail over that. People lost their homes. People lost their retirement, their savings, everything. Companies went belly up, broke. Nobody went to jail. And in fact, these banks got bailed out by the federal government. They all got money. The banks were too big to fail, they said. If a bank is too big to fail, then it needs to be regulated and more closely scrutinized, in my opinion, because they have way, way, way too much freaking power, and there's too much leniency where this kind of crap continues to happen. Because maybe this will be a domino effect. Maybe there will be several banks that collapse after this. What kind of effect is that going to have on your retirement, your 401k, your pensions? What will it have when you want to go take money out of the bank? What's it going to do to the value of the dollar when the Treasury is printing more money to bail out these failed banks? The ripple effect from that could be catastrophic. There's too much power right now in the banking system. I don't know what the fix is for that, but that is really a huge concern to me, that these banks have far, far, far too much power. They should be allowed to fail. I understand that in 2008, if we allowed those banks to fail, that it would have caused great pain for a lot of human beings in this country. But it would have solved a lot of long-term problems for us. Problems that we are now dealing with today, that we are suffering for. A short-term amount of pain, which would have probably led to the firing of a few politicians, which of course they could never happen, would have led to a much better economy down the road. Especially a financial situation for the country. The article continues to go on. The Biden administration has received sharp criticism, as it should, for its role in the banking failures from experts who cite a federal spending spree that drove up interest rates, devaluing assets, and further fueling ongoing inflation, which is true because this has been inflation. Because of the inflation being so bad, they've had to raise interest rates, which raised the interest rates on those bonds, which then caused the failure of this bank. But that's just part of it. This bank made a lot of really poor financial decisions. SVB declined to comment when asked by Just the News about the purposes and financial prudence of its donations. SBNY has closed its doors. SBNY is Signature Bank New York. They have just closed their doors. They are done. Black Lives Matter responded to Just the News. They said here, associating a multi-billion-dollar bank failure to supposed donations made to black organizations, said the organization, is quite literally the definition of white supremacy. No, it's not. Especially when it's a bank that has been and continues to be largely run by white people. Race has nothing to do with this. They are simply pointing out the fact that SVB Bank was willy-nilly spending quite a bit of money and donating a lot of money to organizations that would not net a return on the investments. Banks do not need to be giving away large sums of money, $70 million, to organizations that are not going to pay that money back, right? This has really nothing to do with the fact that these people are black or Black Lives Matter. I understand why Black Lives Matter takes it personally and brings race into it, because that's what they are. They're race baiters, and that's what they do. And that's fine. And in fact, they say some things here that I actually quite agree with them. They go on to say the SVB failure happened because of Silicon Valley Bank's financial missteps and due to former President Trump, along with Democrats and Republicans in Congress, rolling back regulations on banks in 2018. I agree with them on that, but that's the point that the news was trying to make. Silicon Valley Bank's financial missteps, part of that misstep financially was giving you $70 million. If they had given you some smaller amount of money, I don't know if that's a problem. If it was $1 million or less, maybe. But I don't think a bank should be allowed to give any organization, regardless of who they are, $70 million because you're a bank. That's not your money. Because you need to be putting your money in places where that can return for you. And I agree. I don't know the details in particular of them rolling back regulations on banks in 2018, but I imagine that the banks should probably be more heavily regulated. With the amount of power they have and influence, and if one bank goes belly up, how it causes a trickle-down effect, and just not just in the United States, but globally, there needs to be some pretty serious regulations on the banks. And if somebody wants to hit me up and email me on, we already have enough regulations and this couldn't have been prevented or blah, 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 hit me up. Let me know. Let me know where I'm wrong about this. It goes on. The BLM people go on to say focusing on donations to black organizations doing righteous change work instead of Silicon Valley Bank's executives that were selling off their stock and profiting from their extreme risks just days before the bank failed, like CEO Greg Becker, who profited $3.6 million by selling company stock, is a hilarious attempt to shift blame to black people. First of all, nobody's trying to blame black people for anything. I don't think anybody's doing that here. I think what, again, they were trying to show was this was a foolish donation. It was foolish use of money. It just happened to be BLM. It could have been any other group. It could have been White Lives Matter, right? It's still a foolish use of funds. I do believe, and I agree with her that, or him, I'm assuming her because I believe the president of Black Lives Matter is a she. It's a woman. The bank, they sold off their stock and profited from this kind of downfall. I think there needs to be an investigation into the CEO of Greg Becker. I have a feeling, there will be. I don't think anything will come of it. But you know, that certainly is, it's at the very least, it's a bad look. But I think it's more than just that. Silicon Valley Bank held $212 billion in assets and $324 billion in total client funds at the end of 2022. Contributions to a variety of progressive black causes is irrelevant in the conversation about what led to the bank's demise. Maybe. But because BLM is controversial, it does kind of get brought to the attention. It does get brought into the light. The BLM statement concluded, we need to be demanding real accountability, both from the private sector and the government, which leads to immediate policy change, including public banking options, until we stop protecting the interests of tech executives, shareholders, and billionaires, and start protecting black people from their gruesome exploitation. Then we will unfortunately witness many more big bank bailouts. I agree with this. I think we do need to demand real accountability from the private sector and government. We need policy change. We need more, better public banking options for everyone. And I understand there are interests being protected here from these tech executive shareholders. Should not be a bailout here at all. I don't think it's necessary. I think the bank should be allowed to fail. I feel sorry for the people who had their money in this bank. Because when you bail these people out, when you bail the bank out, bail these people out, nobody learns their lesson. Nobody gets held accountable, and life just goes on, only for it to repeat itself again. But there are consequences to this bailout. It's going to further devalue the dollar. It's going to cause inflation to go up. And it's going to affect millions of Americans. And it could go global. They're already making talks about, there's moves now to get countries away from the U.S. dollar and get them into get onto something different. Like, for instance, the yen, China. And China would love that more than anything, to become the dominating currency of the world. So there's repercussions to all of this. And so we need to really hold these people accountable. I don't think this has anything to do with black people. And again, the article is just pointing out that this bank made a lot of really stupid financial decisions. One of them giving $70 million to a private organization, which happened to be Black Lives Matter. Either you love Black Lives Matter or hate Black Lives Matter. I don't care. I think the organization is corrupt personally. I do believe Black Lives Matter. I just don't like the organization. I think all lives matter, and we should work together to make this the best country in the world so we can all live in harmony and be happy, and we can all attack our goals, our dreams, and our aspirations, and not have to worry about living under the jackboot mother effers in the federal government. There's a few other stories here. Major banks to give $30 billion in bailout for First Republic Bank amid industry turmoil. So First Republic Bank's not doing good. Another domino falling here, but it looks like big groups, 11 banks, among them Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and Bank of America will deposit a total of $30 billion, according to Bloomberg. First Republic appears to have narrowly averted a total collapse after its stock fell by roughly 2/3 in the wake of the failures of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. Despite federal promises of intervention and support from the Federal Deposit Insurance Company, the FDIC, the industry remains tumultuous, with several foreign banks such as Credit Suisse finding themselves in dire financial straits. An estimated 68% of First Republic's deposits are uninsured by the FDIC, the Hill reported. The block of banks asserted that the arrangement reflected their confidence the U.S. financial system would weather the chaos, according to the outlet. The actions of America's largest banks reflect their confidence in the country's banking system. Together, we are deploying our financial strength and liquidity into the larger system where it is needed the most. First Republic, for its part, celebrated the news, saying, "This show of support by a group of large banks is most welcome and demonstrates the resilience of the banking system." I guess that's a good thing. I don't know. I think the best thing we can do is not panic, but be aware. Seek opportunity as much as possible. A lot of times when financial situations occur, there are opportunities for us little peons to benefit from it. A lot of people benefited from the 2008 crash because they were smart. These downturns, these economic crashes, these inflation, and all these other things, when these things happen, there are opportunities there for you to be successful, to benefit, to walk away with more money than you had before. That's not manipulation. That's not taking advantage of somebody else. It's just saying, it's just playing the cards you were dealt. Never ever will I ever say that you should take advantage of somebody. But when there's a situation at hand where the banks are making moves and stock market prices are going up and down because of this, or inflation occurs, or interest rates go down or up because of a bank failure, there's an opportunity there somewhere. You just have to see it. And then you go capitalize on it. Don't take advantage of somebody else or manipulate or deceive or anything like that. But you get my point. When 2008 happened and the housing market crashed, there was a lot of houses on the market for no money. Everybody's houses became worthless. They weren't worth what they once were. And it frustrated a lot of people. And a lot of people got mad and bitter. But what a lot of other people realized was, hey, yeah, my house is now less than what I paid for. But you know what? There's 4 houses in my neighborhood. They're also less than what the other people paid for. They're now vacant. They're back in the hands of the bank. They're going on foreclosure. I'm going to buy all those houses. I'm going to rent them out. I'm going to buy all those houses. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to sell them. I'm going to buy all those houses. I'm going to hold them till the value goes back up, because I know the value is going to go back up. I know all this is going to reverse and it's going to go right back to normal, which it did. It took about a decade, but it got there. In the meantime, they're renting those houses out and they made a lot of money. That's my point. They saw an opportunity. That's what we have to do. Whenever you see financial crisis, whenever you see the news going berserk, telling you it's time to panic, it's time to freak out, it's not time to panic. Everything's going to be fine. If anything that would concern me the most would probably be the war in Ukraine, because it's a very, very sensitive thing right now between us and Russia, and China's now getting involved. It's not going to be a good thing. But as far as the banking situation is concerned, I don't know if I'm too concerned about it. But like I said, there might be opportunity there. And on that note, folks, I think that's going to do it for me today. I feel like we covered quite a bit of news. We had the banking crisis this week. We've got the war in Ukraine, Twitter files. Go follow him on Twitter. Go follow me on Twitter. You can keep up to date with all of that. The Rant with DK on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. I know it sucks. But if anything, get on there just to follow me, and I'll keep you up to date with some of the news. I appreciate y'all listening. Thank you so much for the recent uptick in downloads. It's just been absolutely fantastic. I hope you enjoyed this segment with just the news. I love talking about it. Hopefully we'll get some good news with the banks, and we won't get any more bad news going into the next week. We'll see how it all kind of plays out. It is Friday, so it's kind of the end of the week. Won't know anything more. What do we got going on this weekend? We have, if you like golf, the Valspar tournament's going on with the PGA. There's a big race at Sebring. Lots going on this weekend. Oh, by the way, happy St. Patrick's Day. Have a Guinness and have one for me because I don't drink beer anymore because of this diet. Yeah. I do miss beer sometimes. You know what I mean? But not as much as I thought I would. So yeah, go have a Guinness. Go have some corned beef and live it up. Drink some green beer. Go have fun. And if you're listening to this podcast on Saturday, go have a green beer anyway. Go get some food coloring, put it in your beer. And why does St. Patrick's Day only have to be one day? It should be the whole damn weekend. The fact that it fell on a Friday is probably the best thing for like all people. Because now you don't have to worry about going to work tomorrow hungover. So yeah, on that note, folks, thank you so much for listening to the rant. I thank you. We'll be back next week with more of The Walking Dead. And we're also going to be back next week with more of the news. Stay tuned for more interviews. I'm trying to lock them in. I'm not going to make any announcements yet because I'm not too sure. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up. And again, if you like this show, rate and review it. If I said something you don't like, you can always tell me. You can email me your hate. Tell me to screw off. I'm wrong about Ukraine. I'm wrong about the banks. I'm wrong about everything. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Email me, davidking.therant@gmail.com. Hit me up on Twitter, The Rant with DK. Facebook, The Rant with David King. Hit me up. I will respond. Thank you so much for listening. Tell a friend. If you like the show, the more you do that, the more it helps me out. Record downloads this week, folks. Unbelievable. Very, very happy about that. You have no idea. Just got me excited to get back here behind the mic. If you like just the news, let me know. If you didn't like this segment, let me know. We're going to keep doing this for a while now. All right, folks, on that note, thank you so much. Have a great Friday night. Have a great weekend. We'll get back to you. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much. Good night.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.